We all know that Red Like Roses is RWBY's theme. It's been set since the beginning. A very hidden motif along with the likes of This Will Be the Day. But while listening to all of the parts back to back, I noticed something. All of the parts, part 1, part 2, and part 3, Guide My Way, kind of tell a complete story. A story about RWBY, yes, but also a story about grief. To put it simply, part 1 is denial. RWBY is fighting alone, determined to be what her mother was, but all the while not accepting the fact that her mother is gone. She is trying to keep Summer alive by being like her. Part 2 is anger. A little fictitious conversation between mother and daughter, where RWBY is practically screaming into the ether, "Why did you leave? Why didn't you stay?" The song is loud, it's fierce, it's visceral in a way, but it's also saddening, because this conversation can never actually happen. Part 3 is acceptance. Despite the loss still singing, RWBY chooses to live on. Not because of an expectation and a mask of being like her mother, but to change and to grow in order to keep her memory alive. If she is going to live on in her memory, she is going to do it in her own way. As herself, as Ruby Rose. Not a hero, not a martyr, but a fighter. A resilient flower that refuses to wilt. And you can kind of hear it in part 3. The melody borrows from part 1. Why does it borrow from it? Well, that's simple. Because it's basically telling the same story, but with a wider lens. RWBY is still allowed to grieve. She's still allowed to believe in the things that her mother taught her. Which was kind of similar to what part 1 was about, except in part 1, she was doing it in denial. Now, she is doing it with acceptance. Weiss's theme has always interested me, because when we first meet her, it's very soft and quiet, but quickly picks up into something more, a flurry of emotions and inner turmoil, a blizzard of her own creation. And a question poses itself from the beginning. Who do you see when what is reflected of you is changed? Mirror, Mirror, parts 1, 2, and 3 seek to answer that question. First up is Mirror, Mirror. The act of pretending and practicing false perfection. There's a duality there, that Weiss feels the need to stand up to standards that are set out for her, but not feeling as though it fits with her ideals or beliefs. The beliefs that she has are manufactured, so all she can really do is flaunt them. Part 2 is the questioning phase. After being away from the place that set out these expectations for her, she's starting to come into herself, to realize who she is as a person, and realizing pretty damn quickly that the person that she is isn't the same person that her father wants her to be. She's questioning whether the ideals and beliefs that she has been taught for most of her life are the ideals she should be following. This is the beginning of a divergence in her manufactured morals, and the beginning of self-identity. And finally, part 3, This Life Is Mine. The aforementioned act of divergence. She is no longer in the questioning stage. In fact, she is far from questioning anymore. She is sure in her choices, set in her beliefs. She is cutting ties from the expectations that her father put upon her, and for once is finally fully allowing herself to be free. Her chains are cut. She's free to fly out of the gilded cage she was kept in. She will make her own name for herself. And she's proud of it. Now, one thing we should probably ask ourselves is, what exactly is the mirror? It's one of the main focuses of all these songs, so obviously it has to be important. Think about it for a second. In the songs, the narrator, which would be taking the role of Weiss talking, refers to the mirror a lot, asking it different things. The mirror is always addressed as if it knows things, but I don't think it's referring to an actual person or thing. Rather, it's a representation of her morality system. It's the things that she has been taught. That's the reason in part 3 there's a lyric that is representative of her actively throwing it away. To quote it, "Now this conversation's finally over. Mirror, mirror, now we're done. I've pulled myself together now. My mind and heart are one." She's not referring to the mirror anymore. The mirror wasn't her morality system to begin with. Rather, it was the system that she was put into. A system that she has sent broken and changed. A single fleck of snow can be the start of a coming storm. She will change what her name means to her. It's no longer holding her down. When I first heard Blake's theme when watching her character trailer, there was something different about it. There was an instant recognizable melody to it. Little did I know that this small motif would be so important and integral to her character. Motifs are some of my favorite things in music. I absolutely adore them. The ability to take a reoccurring musical theme and put it in different places to apply different meanings has always fascinated me. So imagine my surprise when Blake's theme, From Shadows, took this exact route. Unlike other themes I've covered, From Shadows doesn't have other iterations. There are no part 2s or part 3s to this song. It's just the one. Why? Well, the song itself isn't specifically referring to Blake as a character. Rather, it's referring to a goal that she's willing to achieve. The song From Shadows talks about the discrimination and judgment that the Faunus face, how that changed their ideals fundamentally. Very specifically, things like the White Fang, originally a peaceful liberation group, suddenly tainted with the likes of racial supremacy and violence. The thing that is very interesting about the theme, however, is that although it talks about it in the first half, the song, the racial discrimination that this group people face, it suddenly changes. Midway through the song, it stops talking about being violent. There is a dramatic change within the lyrics where there is no mention of violence anymore. And this is where it ties into Blake's character. You might have noticed throughout the show, Blake is not a very violent person. I would almost call her anti-violent. If there is a way to solve a problem that does not involve conflict, she will take it. One of the main themes that Blake carries with her is the thought of peace. And she has witnessed firsthand that violence does not bring peace. Violence only breeds more violence. That's why in the Black trailer, she ends up running. It's not what she signed up for, and she refuses to stand by and watch people get hurt while there are other ways, more sustainable ways of making a change. This idea of change and peace actually follows the theme through Blake's story, because unlike the other songs where there are other iterations, as I have previously stated, there is only one version of From Shadows in the entirety of the series soundtracks. And the reason why that is that the theme shows up not as another iteration of the song or a continuation, but as a reoccurring melody in the instrumental score. Out of all of the characters' themes, Blake uses the active instrumental motif the most, and the places where they use it are very interesting. I can't really go through all of the examples because there are, unsurprisingly, a lot of them, but while watching the show, I noticed a theme with where they showed up. Every single time her goal or her past is referenced, From Shadows usually is played as a little melodic motif in the background. As I have mentioned, motifs are usually used to state an idea. They are meant to be associated with things like characters or a certain moment or feeling. From Shadows is integrally tied to Blake as a character because it's a reminder of her goal, that she can make her way through this with peace, not violence. One of the very notable uses of this motif is during Volume 3, where, after Yang has her fight with Mercury and thinks she has hurt him, Blake explains her past with Adam. In the background of this scene, the motif is playing. In this context, it is not in reference to any kind of goal that she has, it's in reference to her past again. The theme is inherently tied to Blake as a person. There is no changing what it means because the ideals within the song are integral to her character. Motifs often signify both as change and a reminder. And for Blake, this is evident. Not only it is a reference to the change that she herself wants to make, and that she's not doing it alone, but it's a reiteration of her ideals, of her hope. It's one of the things that can't change because it's so important to her character, and From Shadows displays this absolutely beautifully. Instrument association is just as important to the concept of RWBY's soundtracks as color is to the concept of their character designs. It's not very hard to miss, but within the overall alternative rock direction that most of these soundtracks take, the character themes and the songs that tie back to them have certain instruments that are associated with said characters. For RWBY's theme, there was Celtic-inspired instrumentation, and surprisingly, even some Spanish guitar thrown in for that ever so familiar melody. For Weiss's theme, they seem to take a more orchestral approach, using things like strings to enhance the instrumental-like feel of the vocal performance, which seems to be inspired by things like opera, if I had to take a guess. For Blake's theme, they leaned heavily into the piano for her main theme. As I stated in my last video regarding Blake's theme, in most cases, that is actually how her motif is presented in the score. And for Yang's theme, there is a very obvious answer to this question. The instrument that has been associated with Yang in her theme is electric guitar. And it carries through her songs, all three of them. And these three songs, like most that came before them, tell a complete story. A story of anger, of an experience, and of overcoming mental and emotional obstacles. Putting them in chronological order, the first of these themes, Ignite, paint a very vivid picture of Yang's character. A hot-headed girl who is more punch first, ask questions later. When faced with a challenge, her first instinct is to hit it until it's down, using her anger as a weapon to protect others, more specifically in the context of this song, her sister, RWBY. But as the song so graciously points out for us, this mindset might be a little more explosive than we are expecting. And that explosiveness leads to self-destructive behavior, even if she doesn't realize it. The second of these themes, I Burn, reiterate what the last theme was putting down. Yang is still very much the same person she was in the previous theme, but now is sort of doubling down on that behavior. She's grown cocky, feeling untouchable. After all, why would you expect to win against something that is constantly on the verge of combustion? She feels as though if she tries hard enough, she will win any fight. But the reality of this situation isn't always as welcoming. The final of these themes, Armed and Ready, is her reality check. Coming to us at the end of Volume 4 as the credit theme, it paints a picture of Yang that we haven't seen before, a damaged person who has been wounded so deeply, and yet despite that is willing to get back up and fight. And although the title of this song kind of sounds like a cruel joke, considering that Yang physically went through a tragedy, there is something so deeply poetic about it. Describing somebody who has had their life physically changed around them and decides not to let themselves be hurt by it again. Most people might equate Yang to a burning inferno, a firestorm of emotion that cannot be contained. But I see a different interpretation. When I look at Yang, I do not see a girl enveloped in fire. I see the sun, something that is both so bright and sometimes dangerous to perceive, and yet something that is warm and provides light for others. And it is going to take a hell of a lot more to snuff somebody like that out for good.